Five Nights at Freddy is the latest release movie from Blumhouse Pictures, and it's one that the fans were extremely excited about. Many fans grew up with these games, and while there's an amazing story of how the game got created to the point of it just becoming a phenomenon, the latest movie was released by Blumhouse, and we're going to talk about it right after this. What's going on, movie fans? Welcome to another episode of The Film Frequency. I'm the host here, Haize, and today we're going to have a spoiler review of, and I'm not really going to dive deep. I'm not going to be spoiling the ins and outs and how the movie ends per se. We're just going to have a free conversation about the movie itself. And so the Five Nights at Freddy movie is an interesting one. I feel like coming into this, I didn't really have like huge expectations. I had expectations of kind of just the concept, right? Because the Five Nights at Freddy concept is one that, especially like kids of my age, right? The animatronics are always kind of been this weird thing, right? And people being in those suits when it's not animatronics, and just kind of always been a creepy thing. And so like that's something that the Five Nights at Freddy's game really kind of dug into, right? And so there's a lot of lore there. And so it's really, I feel like it's ripe for a franchise if done right. And so coming into this movie, like into this first one of what, reportedly they wanted to get 3 movies out of it if possible, things like that. I feel like, not to say that it missed, right? I throughout enjoyed the movie for what it was, right? I thought it wasn't amazing. It's not anything that is, it's not a groundbreaking film, right? It's not anything that I think that it'll stick with me for months and months to come, but it was a fun movie, right? It was an enjoyable one, especially as like gateway horror, and especially like kids. I think they're going to really enjoy this film. And the storyline, while they made some changes to the lore to kind of do their own thing, which when you add up when you have an adaptation of something, adapt something is the word I'm looking for. When you do that, you want to kind of have a little leeway where you can. And the cast in this one, I think Matthew Lillard cast in this one, it's great. You even get some signs to some of his former movies we'll talk about in a minute. But like Josh Hutcherson, I think he did a phenomenal job acting in this movie, right? And the thing is that this movie, I think, is going to be very different than what some of maybe the people who aren't aware of Five Nights at Freddy's, maybe what they thought from the trailers, right? They just thought it was going to be like this killing streak of murderous animatronics, which it really wasn't, right? There was like one extended kill scene of the animatronics just going off, and otherwise it really doesn't. It's really kind of more of a character-driven piece. And I'll say this, like, I admire what they wanted to do with the film. Do I feel like it hit quite the way that maybe they wanted to? No, because it's a much slower movie than I think what you expect, especially a movie coming in at like what, an hour and 45 minutes. Like, I think it's a lot slower pace than what people are expecting, and I think that may be playing into why you're seeing some of the reviews that you're seeing, because people just didn't necessarily expect this movie to be as character driven as what it is. Like, you have whole scenes in this movie where it's Josh Hutcherson and his younger sister playing or bonding with these animatronics, right? And so you're always kind of waiting on the time where it's going to go left, or things are going to get crazy. And while that does happen towards the end of the movie, this is a really solid character driven piece, right? As far as like what they were trying to do and the story that they were trying to tell. I think where it falls flat at is the execution of kind of the premise, right? Like, I don't think a lot of people are coming into this Five Nights at Freddy's movie and expecting this character driven thing. I guess you have the thing where Mike, is protective over his sister, and even starting off the movie with the him insulting a guy at the mall that he thought was, assaulting a child, and you find out why, he's kind of worried about that. The fact of the thing that happened in his past with losing his little brother, and that traumatizing him, and him trying to go into this dream theory and trying to hope that he's going to uncover and remember the guy who took his brother by really diving into his dreams, and how that kind of plays into the kids that are inhabiting these animatronics, whose spirits are inhabiting these robots. And so, that plays a part into it as well. And like I said, that part I really do feel like was executed solidly. Was it amazing? No. Was it terrible? No. But I think what you're seeing, as far as a lot of the reviewers kind of like negatively or bashing this, as some people would say, is that it just probably wasn't what they were expecting. And it wasn't what I was expecting initially when a Five Nights at Freddy's movie was announced, right? But I do think Josh Hutcherson does a great job as Mike Smith. I would even say that the actress playing Vanessa, right, who was in the series You, does a solid job. I think that it starts kind of being obvious on what the twist is they're going with her, especially after the characters were sent to kind of bash up Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, and then Vanessa comes and tells Mike about it, but the bodies are mysteriously gone. Right? I think you start feeling where they're going with this a little bit early on, and I think this is ultimately a movie that kind of suffers not just from the PG-13. I do think, a little bit more gore, a little bit more kill scenes would have definitely helped this movie, and especially as far as reviews. But I think not having Matthew Lillard in this movie a little bit more, and he's presented as this character, Steve Raglan, who actually puts Mike on this job, and he's a counselor and things like that. He ends up being William Afton, who I think we all understood what that was going to be, but he actually ends up being the father of Vanessa instead of the father of Michael Afton, right? And so and it's Mike Smith in this one, and so you kind of, like I said, they do changes with the lore, and it's going to be interesting to see how the really big Five Nights at Freddy's fans take the change to the lore. But I think when the scenes that you get of William Afton and Matthew Lillard being murderous in this movie are great, right? I really do think they are great when you get to see it in that. And he even does the knife wipe from Scream and things like that. But when you see him in the Spring Bonnie costume and things that's great. And you get a very small glimpse of it. We're talking about probably 5 total minutes in this movie, if that. And so, I think that this is a movie that suffers from, and I think this movie is going to do well. I want to be clear on that. I think this is going to be a movie, especially I think younger audiences are going to really enjoy this movie. Like I said, gateway horror, it's great for that. You could take the kids to see the movie, and they probably may be even a little bit underwhelmed as far as thinking that it was going to be even more murderous than what it is. But I think when it comes down to it, right, is that I wish that they would have just doubled down on the prospect of what this film could have been, meaning that I wanted to see William Afton go after on a murderous streak and just completely wreck fools. So just be 100% honest, and you don't really get that in this film. And so it's something that, while I respected what the filmmaker said, and far as going PG-13 had to make them be a little bit more creative, and you feel that, right? But this is a film that kind of the tonal shifts in this film are very jarring in a way. And I think that that's ultimately what it comes down to, as far as it just feeling weird. Like I said, I walk away from this movie overly enjoying it. I want to be clear on that. I enjoy this movie more than anything else. If we live in a black and white world where it's did you hate it or did you love it, I would have to say I loved it more than hated it, because I think it's solid in what it does. And I think that maybe in setting the groundwork for what they plan to be a franchise, maybe this is a great first step into that. And then when they make subsequent movies, because I do think this movie is going to make its budget back. Blumhouse rarely has movies that don't make its budget back. If they make subsequent movies, that maybe they can just dig into that concept a little bit more, right? Show more of the animatronics, maybe even put more money into it based on what it makes, right? Those type of things, because this cast, I think, is a really good cast. I think this is a really solid cast up and down this movie. Even the young actress Piper Rubio, who plays Abby, okay in this, right? And not anything amazing, but it really comes down to it just doesn't live in either world really extremely well, overly well. And so I know this is probably going to be something that the huge Five Nights at Freddy's, the FNAF fans are love, and it's probably going to be a lot of things that you see in comments and things of people saying, well, you just don't get it because you don't play the game. And that very well may be true for most of the people in this, right? Cameos from Corey Kenshin and other YouTubers and things like that, all great in this film to just have that. And Corey Kenshin is just a good guy overall. And like I said, I would love to see what they do next with this concept. And hopefully they are able to make a sequel, because like I said, the sequel may take this into the place where now that they've set the tone, right? Now that they've introduced the concept of Five Nights at Freddy's to a worldwide movie audience, more than just the games, that they can kind of do more with the concept and more with the lore and more with, some of even the violence that you see in the games, right? And it just certain things were really toned down. I think even at the end with the William Afton getting trapped in the suit, they just really kind of changed. That is one of the things that I'm sure most of you guys have seen. If you go and look at William Afton getting trapped in the suit, the sounds that you hear on YouTube of people reenacting what it is, they just sounds gruesome. And so when you see it on this and just see the animatronic go into his rib cage, it kind of just feels tamed in a way, right? And then you end the film with him sitting in the corner and kind of, going through what he's going through and getting trapped in that suit. But I still think it could have been more. And that was really the scene that I was really looking forward to in this movie, was just, getting to that scene and what that was going to be and how was that going to be depicted on film. And I think that it's just much better things have been done for it on YouTube than what happened in this film. And the third act of this movie too. I think the third act, to me, it starts feeling like it's going to ramp up. And while they're trying to condense the storyline, I think of whether the first 3 games into this one film, you feel like they're trying to go somewhere far with the third act. And the third act really is pretty tamed as well. Like, even how they make the animatronics realize that William Afton was the one that murdered them, right? Like, Abby drawing it and putting it on the board, that's all it took. Like, they just, like I said, I understand what they were going for. I just don't think that it was executed as well that it could have been. Is it terrible? No, there are way worse films than this that are released every single year. And like I said, this is a solid gateway horror movie, I think, specifically geared towards a younger audience. But I hope that if they do make the subsequent films and they do continue making films in this franchise, that it just goes a little bit further. That's kind of my thoughts on it. You guys can let me know what you guys think on everything down below. Thank you so much for tuning in to this quick review over Five Nights at Freddy's. And, we'll be back later on in the weekend with more movie news and go over things, because got things that I want to talk about with the Chucky versus Megan concept that kind of people are now running with based off comments from the Chucky creator. But overall, thank you guys so much for tuning in, man. I'll be back, guys, very soon. The next time I feel like making a video. Peace, y'all.